open it to questions. Kevin, go ahead.
Thanks, Chris. Well, certainly exciting day for us. Good morning, everyone. I guess if you're in Canada, happy Canada Day as well here on July 1. But exciting day for a franchise. I'm very proud to announce Don Granato as the next head coach of the Buffalo Sabres. As many of you know, but Donnie is a great person, high character, high integrity. He's a life learner. I really believe he's going to represent this organization in a very positive way. When the season ended, Donnie and I spoke. I talked to him about the process that we would go through. And, he did say to me right away, he said, Kevin, I want you to know this is the job I want. And I feel that I'm ready for this. I've openly talked about to many of you and also within our organization of building this franchise with people that truly want to be here for the right reasons, that love this organization, love this community, are proud every day, whether it's on the ice or part of the staff, to work and be part of something special as we move forward. And Donnie certainly fits that mold that we were looking for. I think it was a great process to go through. I learned a lot, had many, many interesting conversations. But as we went through the process, just felt strongly that Don Granato is the right person to lead this franchise moving forward. So I'll turn it over to you, Donnie, and then I'm sure we'll have some questions from the group from there.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you to everyone on the call. I certainly appreciate being here. As Kevin mentioned, this is the position I wanted to be in. I had hoped to be in. Nothing else interested me in the interim. I wanted to make that clear. I didn't even think of pursuing or potentially pursuing anything else. I didn't feel that was right. This is something that excites me to be here. So with that, I want to thank Terry and Kim, our entire staff, I should say, our players, and of course Sabre fans, which really this is all about. This is an opportunity for me, but I really feel that it's more than an opportunity. It's an obligation. I feel like I have an obligation to all the people that follow the Sabres, that care about the Sabres, to the players that walk in our room and have to battle for us, to the staff that commits so much, and everything involved. I really do feel that this is an obligation that I have in this position, and I look forward to that. As mentioned, Terry and Kim, one thing going through this process was a great opportunity for me to sit down and speak and listen and converse and get to know Terry and Kim much better. And it was great. It's nice to know better when you go to work each day how much the people that run the business care about you and your success as an individual and a collective whole. I felt that. I feel that. I know that. I've worked in many different organizations in the NHL and all over, and I know that is a key component, and probably the biggest key component to what happens. And I know we have that here. So that was a great feeling for me, and it really energizes me moving forward. Obviously, I wouldn't be here without the help of many people. Again, I feel like I have an obligation to those who have been so great to me over the years. Other NHL general managers that I worked for, and coaches and staff. There's too many to mention. But I am, and I feel that I am an accumulation of all that I've looked at and been around in positive ways and learned from. And there's no greater of that than my family. So I'd like to thank them, my parents, especially, raising 6 of us. I tell people that was the first team I was on, and learned a lot. And on reflection, there's a lot of that goes into my coaching. So before I start, as I mentioned, the challenge excites me. The demand of the challenge is what excites me. To walk in, I fully believe we have a huge opportunity right in front of us. I think our players have started to grasp that with excitement and energy. The demand of Sabre fans, the demand of our hockey community is right where I want to be. I love that. You play the game, you go to bed at night for years and years and years as a kid, then a coach, even as a manager. And you just want to be in a hockey environment where people appreciate hockey and winning. And I feel I couldn't ask for more in that regard. One quick story before I take any questions or actually experience more than a story. When I first came to the Sabres 2 years ago as an assistant coach, I was invited. The first event I was invited to was the alumni golf outing. And I was invited before the golf outing took place to jump in an alumni meeting that was to take place. So I get to the course, I enter the country club, and I'm trying to find this banquet hall. The meeting had already started. So I find the banquet room that the meeting is taking place. I walk in the back door, and I was shocked. I was overwhelmed at how many alumni were at this. I said, it's more than a golf outing. It was an event. And they're all in chairs. Somebody from the NHL is speaking up front. I sneak in the back door of the room, and the alumni sitting all over the room, I could feel some of them sense that somebody else walked in the room, and more of an unidentified person walked in the room. And it was almost like continual silent eye contact from a couple, and then all the way up to the front of the room, where they made contact with Rob Ray. And I saw Rob way in the front, and I'm in the back walking in the door. And I see Rob Ray start walking toward me, and we get close to each other, and he puts his hand on my shoulder. And at this point, I feel like I'm wearing a Boston Bruins jersey as I walk in, and he leans over and he says, "Can I help you?" And I said, I introduced myself, and right away he kind of unclenched my shirt on my shoulder. I felt a little more safe, and he said, "Oh, Donnie, welcome." And I felt welcomed right away, but I remember the feeling like it was yesterday. I didn't feel like I belonged in that room. Here's a room full of alumni, of guys that blocked shots and sacrificed, and their families sacrificed and took punches to the face to be a Sabre. And you could see the pride and sense that they still had, even as I walked in that room. And when Kevin offered me the position of interim head coach, I wanted that. That was on the core of everything that I wanted to try to bring to our group and to our team, to find a way to get our players to experience something like that, to play for something greater than just themselves. And, I believe that we were able to do that with some great leadership and some great passion, with lots of potential. So with that, I felt that was appropriate to see a little bit of how I think and feel, and the respect I have for the position and moving ahead. I'll turn that over back to Chris, and we can open it up.
Yep, we'll go ahead with the first question from Paul. Paul, go ahead.
Hi, Donnie. Paul Hamilton from WGR. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you, Paul.
Look forward to working with you on a live basis and not on these Zooms.
Me too.
I remember at your end of the season presser, you had said there's more to you than we've seen as far as a coach in the NHL goes. What more is in store? What more are we going to see from Don Granato as a coach in the NHL?
Well, I think you have an idea, or I try to give you an idea of conceptually what I wanted and what we wanted as a staff and an organization. But we had 12 practices, and though every one of those practices was sandwiched on the schedule in between games. There was one exception. They canceled the Boston game, the first practice I was able to run the next day, but I didn't know that until midway through practice. So you practice plan a different way when you play. You have players that are fatigued from the game the night before, and you have to try to get them ready for the game the next day. So that was a tremendous challenge. The 12 practices we had, we were in that scenario every time. So in the progression of, I've spoken a lot about offense, and I say that because, that's a necessity. We need to get better. You're not going to get better playing conservative. And the league forces you sometimes to be conservative. And we felt there's so much opportunity on the table for this team and this group to improve that we turned our focus to that. The players accepted that as a challenge within only those 12 practices, and they practiced hard. I mean, they were competitive, combative at times. But that said, I'm long-winded on this, Paul, but we have lots of practice times. the defensive systems are very straightforward and simple. It's just a question of sacrifice and hard work as it comes down to, and pride and care for your team. The offensive systems are much more complex, and they evolve over time, and practice is an integral part of that. Practice, time, and reps. So I really feel we can involve and enhance our offensive game through the process of practice, and even improve our defensive game. So practice time is the big thing that comes to mind as you ask that.
Morning, Don. Mike Harrington here. Congratulations earning the full-time right to deal with us on a twice-a-day basis and have Paul Hamilton take your questions away. Thank you, Paul. There's a lot of opportunity here and there's a lot of uncertainty here. I guess I'd want to start with, have you talked recently or since the decision was made with Jack, with Sam, and how do you look at preparing to coach a team potentially with them and potentially without them?
Yeah, I didn't think Paul would take all your questions away, Mike. So great job. Yeah, when you prepare for a season, you prepare for a range of what may happen. I haven't had time. I've been on the job for 48 hours, or thereabout, and it's been a whirlwind. Most of that time is returning phone calls and text messages and things like that. But when you prepare for the season ahead, you have all this time where there's different scenarios that might happen. And it helps you actually as an organization, it makes you better because we don't know what will happen, what will transpire. But we will be prepared to move in a direction. We know the direction we want to go. So how we may move and have to move this group in that direction may change. But we're pretty certain, we're completely certain on the direction we want to go and need to keep moving. So, the parts that are there or may not be there, I've mentioned it many times. It would be miserable to feel we have parts and you go into playoff series and you lose a guy or two because of injury, and you say, well, you can't throw your arms in the air and say, oh, we quit, or you have to lose 2 players for us too because we just lost 2 and you feel bad for us. So, that's not the way life works or hockey works. So whatever the scenario is, we'll be ready for it, and we will adjust and acclimate without compromising the direction we want to go. So I'm confident, comfortable in that. Communication with Kevin, I know is great. It has been great, and that will continue.
Bonjour from Montreal. Hey, Don. Hey, Kevin. Everybody. John Warrow here with the AP. Congratulations on the job, on getting the full-time job done. Just this is more of a question for Kevin, and I guess it kind of tails from the previous question. And obviously, Kevin, you've said this a few times. We want people who truly want to be here. People interpret that as perhaps being directed towards guys like Reinhart, Ristolainen, and Eichel after they express their frustrations. Is that a fair characterization of what that comment represents?
Well, I think, John, it's bigger than focusing, in singling out people. I think the point of saying that is we need to establish a culture here of people on the ice, staff across the organization that are proud, that is just something really special to get up every day and have this opportunity to be a Buffalo Sabre. So no, that's a really important piece. And, the way we've talked about it, Donnie and I in our conversations is, that's powerful. And I think that we've talked about a disconnect in our fan base of where this team is at and the love for this team. And we need to get that. And I understand that. And that's something we're going to work towards. But we got energized at the end of the year by the young core of players and their commitment and their passion and their maturity and the stuff that was discussed at the end of the year about what they see moving forward and, their excitement about being a Buffalo Sabre. So that's what I'm specifically talking about. But we won't compromise on that.
Hey, Kevin. Hey, Don. Don specifically, congratulations. Matt Bove here with Channel 7. But the question is specifically for Kevin. You know, when we spoke to you last, it was right after you guys won the draft lottery. And you briefly mentioned some of the stuff with the Eichel medicals. And you guys still weren't necessarily comfortable with the procedure. And now that we're several weeks removed from that, when we last spoke to you, is there any update on kind of the next steps involved as far as the surgery, the potential surgery, or where things go from here?
Yeah. Hey, Matt, hope you're doing well. And, as I've said many times before, I'm certainly not a doctor. Our stance hasn't changed and where we're at. And it's in the hands of the medical experts. That's really, it's what I said previously, and it's where we're at right now. So that's the best I can give you. I understand the question that you need to ask the question, but that's where we're at.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for hopping on. Congratulations, Don, as everybody else has said. My question is also for Don. I know you've said that there were only so many practices you've had since you kind of took over, and we saw immediately just how different the pace was. When you took over, it seemed like the practices were going a lot harder, just almost trying to whip the guys into shape. Now that you're going to have an actual, camp coming up, I mean, what can we expect to see out of that? Is it, kind of throw the guys right into the fire early on so that you don't have to introduce harder practices on like later on in the season? How do you look at now that you have a full season to prepare for, you're not just taking over, in the middle of things when the season's already slipped away from you?
Yeah. Hi, Ted. Thank you for that. I don't see practices changing from the standpoint of tone. The players' response was outstanding. They enjoyed it. They loved it. They're competitors. They love to compete. So maybe we adjust the time, the duration of a practice, but we will not compromise the competitiveness of practice. When they enter a game, hopefully what you ran in practice, that the game actually feels a bit slower or a bit easier. And we'll continue with that mindset. Again, I felt the players embrace that, and that won't change. The volume of practice is nice. I mean, what helped me tremendously was my 5 years at the national team program and taking the team over with only 12 practices. You learn there quick. I had the best talent in the country playing in. We put them in the USHL or league or the college leagues. The players were 4 or 5 years older than them. And this is the best talent in the country, but they never knew how to play together. They didn't need to use their line mates where they came from. They were just better. But we had as a coaching staff there about 100 to 120 practices a year. And I really went into that job with the hindsight of having coached in the American League and coached in the NHL. And how do I develop a player faster or implement a system more efficiently and effectively? And, that helped. And that will help even with our training camp for me to prepare the team for, game 1, game 2, all the way on. And that was one thing from a coaching respect I was most hopeful for, to get this opportunity to coach this team, was to have more of an opportunity to move the team along in a progression. And it is all about a progression, as I've spoken many times. So that's how I feel on that.
Hey guys, hope all is well. One question for each of you. Kevin, I know you had talked often about the lines of communication with Jack Eichel were open, and you guys talked a lot. Have you guys been talking a lot during this? And Don, how will you handle the assistant coaches, and has that search begun?
Okay, I can answer first to keep moving, John.
Yeah.
The assistants, again, having just accepted the position and going through the interview process with Kevin, that's something we will be discussing in the next week or coming weeks. How our staff may fill out. The guys that were here, I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and they were incredibly effective and efficient to work with. So they are obviously in the mix moving forward as we sort this out. But those are conversations that will, now that I'm in this position, we'll be addressing and moving forward on.
And my part of the question is, when you build a team, every single part of the team matters. Every single player matters. And there's open communication with all our players, their agents, continuous conversations, amongst all of that, and also amongst, Donnie and I, as now he's in this position, and just, where do we go and decisions we make. So now the communication part is critical, but what's also critical is to have it with everyone. And for whether it's your last player on the roster or, someone at the top of your lineup, it's critical to have that, and that everybody feels that their value is there on the team. And, that starts with those type of conversations. So that's just part of what we do.
Bill, go ahead with your question. Bill, sorry, we're not hearing you. We'll go on to Alex, and Bill, we can come back to you.
Yeah, hey, Don, you said you have an obligation to this franchise. What is behind that obligation? Is it the relationship with the ownership and the administration, the players, the obligation to the fans? And for Kevin, what's the working relationship been like with Don, really kind of all jammed together here when he was given the interim job and now the head job here?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the first part of this one, and then Donnie, you can jump in. What was critical to me was having a relationship with the head coach where you trust each other. You're not always going to agree, but you are going to get in a room and have conversations. And Donnie and I quickly established a rhythm, and would talk. I mean, you're talking every day, multiple times a day, about so many different scenarios. And so that was an important part of this. As I went through the process, and you're learning and you're talking to other people, that is something that I thought a lot about with Donnie's background. He's been a head coach for so many years at so many different levels. He's been an assistant coach, understands what it feels like to be in that situation. He's scouted, so has a little different perspective on, whether it's player evaluation. So that really is a unique package. And he's constantly learning. And so I love people that, you challenge each other, you ask questions, you are humble enough to know that you don't always have all the answers, but if you surround yourself with the right people, you're going to get to the right answer. And, I always say this, it's not about being right, it's about getting it right. So how do you surround yourself with people that are all of that mindset? So that's something I'm excited about. And obviously Donnie had a head start on that based on, him coming in, but I'm looking forward to now just picking right back up where we were.
Yeah. Hi, Alex. Thanks for the question. The obligation I feel for the team, or for the obligation, is really for the fans. I mean, I grew up in Chicago area. Hockey wasn't real big when I grew up, and I went to high school, and it was the football players at high school. It was the baseball players, but it wasn't hockey players. I finished high school in Minnesota, and you felt that's a hockey community. I mean, that was an amazing experience for me to go to Minnesota and finish high school in a hockey community. And the love of that, finally people appreciate what you go to bed at night dreaming about being and becoming. And that's what we have here in Buffalo. That's amazing. I listen to various radio shows or national telecasts and radio shows, and they love to just throw, shots out there that, regarding Buffalo might not have this, or it's harder for this. There's nothing hard about people. I can assure you, I know the players, lots and lots of extremely talented players. What we have in Buffalo is special, and they love that. I know our group last year has such a pride for the city and the community, and playing hockey here and putting a jersey over their shoulder. And that's what we need to feel and feed off of. And it's easy to feel and feed off of that here. Now, the challenge of it is, there's an intensity to that, but I love that intensity to that. We're not down somewhere where it's not a hockey community and nobody knows who we are. I like the pressure of that. I think I know we can get our players to thrive on that pressure, where maybe, there are moments where they didn't necessarily thrive on that. So watching a player, and I'll use a specific player in this, Dylan Cousins this year, and various players, and Tage Thompson was another one that comes to mind. So this is just coming to mind right now, where they stuck up for their teammates and stuck up for the team right away, instantaneously. That the surge that went through me, I know went through people watching those players. They cared about their teammate, they cared about the team, they cared about our organization. As Kevin said, players that want to be here, it falls into the categories like that. So we have an obligation, I feel an obligation, that we have to get people here that thrive on that situation. And we have a lot that are already doing just that. So I look forward to that moving forward, but in essence, that's the essence of it, Alex.
Don, I'm interested in your thoughts on, there's 5 teams in what is going to be your division. We're in the playoffs this year, and 2 of them are in the Stanley Cup final, and how daunting a task that makes your challenge. And just if I could, Kevin, briefly, John Vogel asked about the communication, and to be honest with you, that wasn't really answered. I mean, you said it's critical to have that communication. Are you communicating with Jack Eichel would simply be my question.
Hey, Mike, I'll answer that one as quick as I can for that you asked me on the challenge ahead. You have to thrive on challenge. I mean, if you're going to win and be successful at the highest level, you have to love challenge. And I will reiterate this. It's really important for us. There's a lot of petty stuff that happens, and emotional stuff that happens, and you want a response. And those things, organizations, coaches can get stuck on petty things and anchored down. There's certain things you have to just move past and focus on and not be bogged down. And I'm talking about your question with us challenging our division, and 2 teams are in the Stanley Cup finals are in our division in Tampa and Montreal. When we are successful, when we're going to be successful, we are going to improve our players and our team. We're going to develop to the point where we can win consistently. We'll hit a tipping point if we just stay focused on getting better. It's inevitable. If we get tugged and pulled aside and distracted on things that don't continually make us better, it's going to be a lot harder to find that tip, to get to that tipping point. So we will stay the course. The course is improvement, getting better. And I've done it. I've seen it with teams. I've been part of it with championship teams. There's a lot that will fall into place with that mentality and that objective, and that will fall in place. I'm confident of that. And we have so much room for growth that it's powerful when you look at what we have and what we have coming, what we have in our system already, whether it's in Rochester or elsewhere, in the form of draft picks, and certainly the players that we saw and young guys that were empowered and took advantage of it last season. So that challenge is really, really exciting to me. I know we can do it.
Yeah, and Mike certainly wasn't avoiding the question. I think my point was that communication with all our players is critical, and an extension of whether it's players. Sometimes it's a player, sometimes it's the agent. That's just part of our day to day. So of course, yeah, talking to all of our players. And I think I don't remember the exact time of day. I think yesterday I spent a long time on the phone with Jack's agents. Had a great conversation. So that's just part of what we do.
Good morning, gentlemen. Mookie Hawkins, World Sports Today. How's it going?
Hi, Mookie.
I have 2 questions, one for both. I will start with you, Coach, and congratulations first and foremost. Just what are some of the phases that you stand by on making this team a contender?
I'm sorry, I missed you the first. You said before making it a contender. What was the word you used?
What are some of the phases that you stand by on making this team a contender?
Well, the things that come to mind, we've already initiated. Again, the pride and passion for your teammates, for your team, the competitiveness of your group, the clarity. We were able to make adjustments in between periods. We had back-to-back games against the same opponent, which was great advantage for me as a coach, because I could put things in front of the players and see the speed of their ability to make an adjustment. and it got faster and faster, which is a real indicator of progress and skill overall. To me, there were lots of signs of real strong potential, or strong signs of the actual potential that's there. It's just moving them, it continually move them in the direction. In many areas we saw through the better parts of last season. The big one is finding a way to win. I always talk about don't wait to win. And you think about the teams in the Stanley Cup Finals. There's one surprise team in there, I would imagine, to a lot of people. And for us, we can't wait to win. Every single night you lace up your skates, there's a way to win that hockey game. And there's a way to find that. And I think our players, I know our players started to see that and see the parts of the game that are within their control. And I know when they were able to evaluate the game, which is a big process of development, the ability to evaluate the game at the level of the players. They were able to evaluate the game right after and feel that the game was determined or not determined with things they had in their control, and they either controlled them or they didn't, but they had the ability to do it. That's where you saw our players play with more confidence and conviction. Those are components that are already in place that we'll keep building on, and our players grasp and have a real great, as a coach, you want to bring clarity to the vision you want. Those guys have a real good clarity right now.
Absolutely. Appreciate that, Coach. And GM, if I may ask you one as well. What are your thoughts on, the big defenseman, man, can he be the Josh Allen of this year's draft?
Yeah, it's a good question in terms of the draft. And we had great meetings a couple weeks ago now actually, it was nice. Many of our staff was in town and actually in-person meetings, and a few of our European scouts were on Zoom, but spent a lot of time going through all the players, the top end towards later in the draft. And what's exciting is especially at the top of the draft, there's a lot of players that we feel good about, and we're continuing to kind of work through that. I'll have more meetings coming up, but I said this a couple of weeks ago, I think, when we won the lottery. I love the draft process. It's interesting to me. It's a lot of fun to really try to project and evaluate where they're young, they're 18-year-olds, most of them, and where they'll be when they're 23, 24, because it's not an easy job to do, but it's exciting, and it's going to be here quick. The days are moving fast right now.
Yeah, sorry, Bill, we still don't have you, so we'll move on to Pete here.
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, Don. Congratulations once again. Pete Gallivan from Channel 2. Just one, I know a lot of the strings were going to be pulled by Kevin, obviously, but Don, when you look at the possible trades that have been discussed, and the potential draft currency you're looking at with the #1 overall, to get to that, end result, turn this team around, what pieces do you think you're lacking right now in turning this team into a winning team and potential playoff team?
Well, thanks, Pete. There's a lot of pieces I believe strongly in that are entering the organization. You mentioned some of the, Anders Bjork is an example, just entered the organization. We have Jack Quinn, who's at some point going to be entering the organization. UPL is really entering the organization. JJ Peterka just signed. So, you factor in what we have, and maybe if you look at areas that we want to target and improve, and then you factor in, Matthias Samuelsson maturing and coming into the league. There's so many exciting things and pieces that will fill and become more capable at filling areas that you would see on a real winning roster, real successful roster. So, and then you mentioned any potential trades we could have. To me, anything and everything is exciting because of where we're at. We have a lot of potential in the form of talent that's in place to make big steps in a very short span. And I've had a lot of experience been fortunate to be around a lot of extremely talented hockey players. Austin Matthews and Matthew Tkachuk's and Charlie McAvoy's and Werenski's. And I saw those kids develop fast from 16, 17, 18 years old. And now I look at our player pool and it is really exciting for me with the hindsight I have and the experiences I've gone through. It's exciting and the intangible components. I mean, our scouts and player personnel, talent does not equal effectiveness and it doesn't equal success. There's all those intangibles that go with it. And when I meet these kids and I work with these kids and we see these kids, they have a lot of intangibles, a lot of things that you just can't quantify that go into everything I said about the passion and commitment. And so we do have a lot of really good pieces coming, and it ties right in with why I wanted this position so badly, because all of that is exciting.
Hi, Don. Congrats on removing interim from your title. I think it's really well deserved. I want to go off of the pieces that you're excited about for that are coming into the organization. Prospect development is kind of something that's been a little inconsistent in the organization for quite some time now, to be blunt. But the young guys really bought into you, it seems like, at the end of last year after you took over, almost as much as the fan base has bought into the Donnie Meatballs nickname. So, pun fully intended. What's your secret sauce for player development that worked last year, and how maybe are you adjusting that for your first year as a full-time head coach?
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Sometimes when you're talking about player development, it's what you don't say or don't do as much as what you do. And I think of, Darlene Rasmus, for example. There are things that he just, I felt with a little more freedom, we'd see a lot more in certain areas. So, there's a balance to coaching a team outright and then coaching with a focus on development. So a lot of intricacies go into it. Every person's different. Every person's at a different position within their trajectory and their movement forward. So every player has a different identity. You have to help them not only find their identity, because their identity is at the previous level they played. They had a skill set that was maybe 10 different skills at the college level or the junior level, and they come to the NHL, and that skill set of 10, maybe speed was their attribute at the previous level, and they scored 30 goals because they had great speed, but they're not fast in the NHL, so they're not going to score those goals. And it's helping them recognize what they can and can't do, supporting that, and giving them reason to be confident moving forward. So again, each guy it's different for. That's kind of the fun. There's a little bit of an art to it, a read to it. And then you have to factor that in against your opponent each night and every night, who you may match them up against. So lots of little details go into it, but the objective is to just keep moving forward step by step, making sure they know when they leave the rink, they're excited at what just happened. They're excited to come back to the rink the next day and invest more. You as a coach are limited on how much you can push a player. And there's a lot of things you do to be able to push them more. It's not like it was 20 years ago when you can run a dictatorship, coaching at this level. You can't. You have a little less power, and it's more in the form of influence. So you better know how to, influence and be a positive influence to guys where they want to invest more. And that's a huge part of development. And it's but who doesn't as a hockey player? These guys are passionate. Who doesn't want to get better? So if we can help them get better and engage in that process.
Elaborate. Last year,